Take a look at this statistic. 96% of chief academic officers at American universities believe they are effectively preparing students for the workforce. That's pretty good, doesn't it? So obviously this wouldn't have been the topic of my conversation if it wouldn't have been paired with this statistic. Only 11% would in fact agree that universities are effective in preparing students for the workforce. So there's clearly a massive disconnect between higher education and the marketplace in terms of what it means to be prepared for work. And so the question for us to talk about today is, are universities still relevant? Or in other words, if approximately 9 in 10 employers do not believe that their newly hired employees fresh out of college are prepared for the job, why should we still bother passing through universities? So spoiler alert, I think that yes, universities are very relevant in preparation for the workforce. And I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about why it is that I think so. I'm also a member of the first graduating class of Minerva. Now, if you've never heard of Minerva, let me tell you a little bit about what is probably one of the most prominent developments, certainly one of the most unique in the world of higher education. So Minerva is a relatively new and unconventional university. It's very different from traditional universities in just about every way. And in order to prepare students for jobs that don't even exist yet, Minerva completely disrupts what, how, and where to teach. So first, Minerva won't teach you what you can teach yourself or use Google. It teaches students how to think and communicate critically and creatively, regardless of what it is that they do choose to study. So of course, every university encourages critical thinking. But at Minerva, it couldn't be done in a more systematic way. Minerva actually broke down these large learning objectives like critical thinking into a series of very specific concepts that students were introduced to in their first year and then used and repeated for the remainder of their studies, whether they go on to study literature or physics or anything else. So for example, we can take the concept variables as an example. When the student is introduced to this concept in the first year at Minerva, he'll get a rubric much like what you see right now, which is kind of a guide for how this concept can be applied. And from that moment on, the student is expected to use this concept whenever it's relevant. And this is also the way he will be assessed. Minerva doesn't only focus on what to teach, but also on how to teach. The pedagogy is grounded in the science of learning, meaning that there are no lectures at all. You would never find a professor talking at the students. Rather, students learn a subject by themselves, of course with the direction and support of their professors, but then come to small online seminars where the class time is used to debate and actively and deeply process the concept. Finally, Minerva is a global university with a global student body and without any campuses. There is no majority student nationality. For example, in my class, we came from around 40 different countries. Students spend every semester in a different global city for a total of 7 cities in 4 years of study. I know this sounds crazy, but you heard right. Every semester, students move to another country. And in each location, we all live together and try to immerse in local culture, work with local organizations, make friends, and sometimes even pick up the language. So if you're left with more questions than you started with, that makes sense. I'd like to tell you 4 ways in which my university experience prepared me for my job. So I was telling you about Minerva's global rotation and how every 4 months we all pack our bags and move to another country. If you think about it, it means that every 4 months we have to very quickly adapt to a new place. Finding our new favorite supermarket, learning how public transportation works, getting a phone plan, you name it, and all of this is just before the semester even starts. It's not an easy thing, obviously, but I learned that this ability to adapt is like a muscle. It gets stronger with practice. In my job, the ability to learn quickly